I've decided to look at Klarna, a BMPL firm that's been suffering because of increases in credit losses, misses in transaction margin dollars, and a subpar guidance estimate for the next year. But what if we look at Klarna for what it really is? Because most people think Klarna's just a BMPL company, but I think it's actually an undercover growing neobank, and that BMPL is just their customer acquisition tool. And I believe I've found the fundamentals to back it up. This is the first part of a two-part series where I go over Klarna in great depth and detail, so make sure you have notifications on so you can get an update on my video of Klarna the movie. This is a short video on just the core idea I've found based on Klarna's earnings call and earning reports. I hope you enjoy. So I said Klarna is a customer acquisition engine, but what's the support for this? Is BMPL really just the part of their business that allows them to get more customers? Well, you all know that BMPL is 0% loans that achieve returns for the business because of the merchants, the businesses selling the items, actually pay Klarna to have the credit offering available. This is so important to understand because Klarna actually has the lowest take rates in the game, meaning that businesses are paying Klarna less than they do for the other BMPL firms that offer BMPL. This allows Klarna to have a wide breadth of merchandisers. Look at the increase in merchants Klarna has had just this year. By offering these services, they're able to connect with people everywhere, and the consumer is able to go wherever they want to shop and often have a credit offering provided by Klarna through their favorite merchandisers. And while having these low take rates is not what you want to see for the business in the long term, it's very, very strong for customer acquisition, which is allowing us to have over 100 million users. So now Klarna has tens of millions of people that's been exposed to them. So what do they do now? Well, they separate the customer into two different species, and I know that sounds bad, but let me explain. Klarna has two basic forms of customers, and these are payers and these are bankers. Now, the paying customers are the ones that we've already described, shortly engaged with Klarna, have used the services before, they've not taken their relationship to the next level with the business. While bankers are those that have decided to use the other offerings that Klarna provides, like fair financing, the Klarna card, and more engaged in their banking services. Remember these groups for later because these are going to be important. So what does the engaged consumer look like? Well, bankers are Klarna's dream customer, and this is because they use many services that they offer, and this is the CEO's aspirations for the business to be more diversified across products rather than leaning into one offering of BMPL. Fair financing is what investors fear more than anything else, and this is because Klarna historically has always been a short-term credit firm. This is because they offer 6-week loans for smaller businesses and no interest, so these are seen as less risky by the market. But once you add interest, long terms, and allow for larger purchases with the credit, the market sees this as almost irresponsible by Klarna. These larger loans to people with lower income and lower credit scores, an environment that's being seen as increasingly risky for the average consumer. The problem with fair financing also is that we have to recognize the idea that we're going to have some people default on these loans the minute we service the loan, and we don't know whether that's going to be paid back until much later. And because the growth of fair financing has been very intense, these recorded losses have been immense, and the earnings have not yet rolled in to protect us. Next, we have deposits. These deposits are going to scale with the increase of the amount of bankers that we're going to be seeing coming to the platform, which allows for cheap funding for the business, which allows us to have the highest returns on equity possible in the future. Compare this to the likes of a firm which does not have the same cheap funding method, for which can partially explain the lower return on equity it experiences. Finally, let us dive deeper into this last aspect of the banker's life, the card offering. This is going to be the most important idea for getting the consumer integrated into the Klarna ecosystem, because once they have the card, they have an account, and once they have both of these, they may want a subscription to allow them to use BMPL more often. And when it's all said and done, you have a highly integrated user using Klarna for their purchases, debit and credit, in their daily lives, and that the amount of conversion happening from this large base of users is simply revealing how much this plan is working. Now we can come back to the idea of bankers and payers to understand how this is going to change the future landscape for Klarna. We have payers providing less revenue and less funding for the business in all ways compared to the bankers in the business. The core idea with Klarna is not how much income we can derive from the business right now, but whether we're actually able to shift the amount of people that have just met Klarna once to having a full-blown relationship with the business. Klarna's been getting fundamentally worse in order to make sure the actual business is getting better. This is something that shareholders are often okay with on paper, but once this actually starts playing out, people get scared and start running for the hills. I'm not suggesting that they're not right, but rather that I think the fear of the business in the near term is not rational when thinking about the future that management is building right in front of us. What needs to be understood is that the business looks fundamentally worse from the amount of interest paid to depositors and the provisions from fair financing, the more the business is actually scaling itself. And I'm not here to suggest that the scaling is good or bad, that's for you to decide, and something I'll also go over more in the Klarna the movie video. An investment in Klarna is obviously highly risky, and my videos are never financial advice. The question of what you want to do with Klarna, as it is possibly successfully changing their ecosystem, is one that you have to make entirely, and I wish you luck in that journey. Remember, I'll be back soon to explain the rest of what you know in Klarna